Here are 5 major college coaching changes that were made in the last week. Number 1, Nebraska hired Matt Rhule to be their head coach. In the past, Matt Rhule has been a really good or really successful college football head coach. In 4 years, he took Temple from 2-10 to 10-3, 10 losses to 10 wins. In 3 years coaching at Baylor, he took Baylor from 1-11 to 11-3, 11 losses to 11 wins in the span of 3 years. Matt Rhule has shown the ability to turn around college programs. And that said, in his most recent job, I thought Matt Rhule was pretty terrible. I like Matt Rhule as a person. Friends of mine have worked with him. Other friends of mine have worked with him. I hear good and bad about Matt Rhule. So it's both ways. But in his most recent job, Matt Rhule was fired by the Carolina Panthers as their head coach. And he was 11-27 in less than 3 years. He had 2 5-win seasons and then a 1-4 start this year, and he got canned. What's interesting about Matt Rhule is he took no break. Like, right after being fired, he already has another job in college, which maybe he wanted that. I don't know. It's interesting, though. There was no time to step back and evaluate and recover. It's just right back into coaching. And I get it, man. When you go through tragedy and hard loss, work often is an escape for me. I get it. But it's also a bit worrisome. I'm very, very curious how Matt Rhule is going to do at Nebraska. Maybe his stuff only works in college. I mean, Nick Saban failed in the NFL. So did Lane Kiffin. Nebraska went 4-8 this fall. They're in a bad place. We've seen Matt Rhule take programs that are in a bad place and turn them around. Maybe he can do the same thing at Nebraska. I'm excited for the opportunity to see him do that. Nebraska hasn't had a winning season since 2016. They've had 6 years of losing since that moment. They got nothing to lose. I like Matt Rhule as a human, actually. And despite my skepticism, I'm not really sure it's going to work or not. I think for Nebraska, not bad. Like, why not take a chance on Matt Rhule? Let's see what can happen. It'd be cool. And I'm rooting for Matt Rhule to turn things around in Nebraska, even if I'm not sure that he's going to. But again, I go back to this. Maybe he's just a great college coach who doesn't work in the NFL, and that's very possible and has totally happened before. The number 2 hire I want to talk about is Kenny Dillingham has been hired as a new head coach at Arizona State. He was the Oregon Ducks offensive coordinator. He's from Arizona. He actually grew up there. He went to Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham was an offensive assistant there while he studied economics. Didn't play college football, was an econ major, loves the game, loves coaching. He's a really good offensive mind. Kenny Dillingham is only 32 years old, which is both good and bad, I think. He's going to an Arizona State program that's got low expectations. I am curious how he does. I'm nervous about the age, but that feels unfair. He's clearly a really good offensive mind. I also think the benefit to being young is you can relate really well to the younger generation of players, which is awesome, and we've seen that work in the NFL really well. A lot of people are excited, and I don't know how to feel about this hire. I'm excited to see what happens. It's a shot in the dark, which could work. He's never been a head coach before. That feels concerning. He's also young, but many people that are close to the program and know Kenny Dillingham view this as a really great hire. So I remain optimistic, unsure of how to feel. Like, I don't know, but I'm excited to see if it works. And I love to see a young guy get a cool opportunity. I think he's going to relate really well to players. He's a great offensive mind. And I am very much rooting for Kenny Dillingham to do well at Arizona State. Now, number 3, David Shaw has resigned after 12 years coaching at Stanford. David Shaw coached 150 games at Stanford. He went 96-54 in 12 years. That's incredible. Well done for David Shaw. He had back-to-back 3-9 seasons and stepped down after that. I think you got to acknowledge David Shaw did incredible given how tough of a place Stanford is to coach. Football is not at all a priority at Stanford. People are there to study, go to school. Class is number 1. School is second. And I thought he did class is also a great word to describe David Shaw, I guess, right? I've got a lot of respect for him. I think he's probably going to broadcast and step back and do his own thing. I also think David Shaw, if he wants to, he probably doesn't, to be totally honest, but if he wants to, he could coach somewhere else and be really successful. He's a great coach, and former players that played for him really, really love him. And I think he's going to broadcast and kind of step back and hang out with his family, but I just want to say I admire the job he did at Stanford. Everybody who plays for him, I think of KJ Costello, who played for him at Stanford. Everyone who played there speaks really, really highly of David Shaw. And KJ Costello transferred away to go play for Mike Leach and kind of lost his job to Davis Mills. Like, it's pretty rare that a player who leaves you still has got good things to say about you. That says a lot about David Shaw. And, I mean, I transferred colleges, and I would say a lot of good things about my head coach too. So maybe it's not crazy rare, but I had a defensive head coach. I love the defensive head coach. The offensive coordinators who I had a problem with. I'm a bitter old man. I don't know. I'm not really. I'm 25. But point is, David Shaw, tip of the cap. I give you a salute. What a great career at Stanford. And I just can't overstate how hard it is to coach there. You're in California. No one cares about football. And you're kind of doing the best you can to win with what you got. And it's really impressive what he did in 150 games, going 96 and 54 at Stanford. That's crazy. Number 4, Luke Fickell has been hired by Wisconsin to be their new head coach. It's an exciting hire to me. Luke Fickell just spent 6 years coaching at Cincinnati. He went 63 and 25, including a 13-1 year where he took a non-Power 5 team, Cincinnati, to the college football playoff. That's absolutely crazy. I am really excited for him. He's going to get a bigger budget at Wisconsin. And I think Luke Fickell and Wisconsin are a cool match for each other. They both benefit. He gets a bigger platform to do what he does and recruit better and have better facilities. Wisconsin's going to get some fresh ideas. And I think they desperately need that. I'm excited for that. And it's worth mentioning, Luke Fickell did coach 1 year at Ohio State, and people might hold that against him. He coached there in 2011. It wasn't an organic situation. He was hired there when he got an emergency promotion, basically, when Jim Tressler got in trouble. He got, he went 6-7 in 1 year, then left the program. Or at least he left. He wasn't a head coach after that. I just don't blame Luke Fickell based on that 1 year, 6-7 at Ohio State. It was an emergency hire in a weird situation. And if anyone still holds that against him, it's really weird because he's shown he's a really good coach and he did a lot of great stuff at Cincinnati. And I am very, very excited to see what Luke Fickell can do at Wisconsin. Finally, number 5, Auburn hired Hugh Freeze to be their new head coach. He was once the head coach at Ole Miss. He left Ole Miss in kind of a mess. Recruiting violations, a 2-year bowl ban, scholarship reductions, probation for 3 years. He also used a university-issued phone, his work phone, to call a female escort service. That's a terrible look. He's kind of a Bible thumper, which is even more hypocritical and frustrating. But Hugh Freeze has slowly worked his way back. And he spent 4 years coaching at Liberty. He's had 4 winning seasons. He went 3-3 in bowl games. He coached Malik Willis, who is a top NFL quarterback draft pick. And not only a great quarterback, but ironically, he transferred away from Auburn to Liberty. Hugh Freeze is now going to Auburn. Look, I feel like you got to say this about Hugh Freeze, and it's true. Hugh Freeze seems like a scumbag. Come on, guys. It didn't end well at Ole Miss at all. But he's also won some games. In 2015, he won 10 games at Ole Miss. He beat Nick Saban and Alabama twice in 5 years. Seems like a scumbag, but he wins. And people in the football world care more about results than character, it seems like. I.e., look at Deshaun Watson playing for the Cleveland Browns. I'm not trying to get on my high horse. I'm just saying, and maybe he's going to have an easier time now that you can literally pay players in college football. So who knows, man? I don't love Hugh Freeze as a person, but it's awful, but this is true. He does make Auburn more interesting. He's beat Alabama and Nick Saban twice, and I love SEC football. I do. He makes the SEC more interesting. It's another good coach at a program with a lot of money to spend, and that's desperate to win. Hugh Freeze seems like a massive scumbag, but he wins, and it does make the SEC and Auburn more interesting. Is it a deal with the devil? Probably, but hey, we'll see. I got an open mind. I always try to be fair, and it was years ago, and you make mistakes. Maybe he learned from it. I don't know. But again, it makes Auburn more interesting, and they made this move, and results matter. If you win, people are willing to look the other way and overlook character flaws.